Schopenhauer guy is the most Schopenhauer guy. You never read?
Yeah, I remember him.
You told me I'm supposed to read his stuff.
Well, yeah.
He's the most depressing thing I ever read.
Well, he's a German philosopher, and of course he's a German philosopher, and German philosophers are going to be depressing. They all are.
Well, Nietzsche talks about the superbird and stuff like that.
Well, I told you that you really can't understand Nietzsche without really looking at Schopenhauer first.
Well, can you explain Nietzsche then?
No, I won't explain Nietzsche to you until you study a little bit more. You just can't jump into Nietzsche like you want to.
But I want to know what the superbird.
Well, no, it's not that simple. You're going to have to go and really do some studying before you could really understand Nietzsche. Do you understand?
Okay, so one thing to me.
Okay, I'll explain. One thing about Nietzsche to you. Will that make you happy?
Nothing makes me happy.
I didn't think so. But, anyways, let me do something over here to check something.
There goes Dave again. He's doing something weird. Even though he doesn't really know what he's doing, he's trying to impress somebody out there.
Okay, I got at least the feeds up and running. At least people could see us. Um, this is Puddin'head Press Live, and I'm going to read some poetry later, pretty soon, about from Bob Trombello, and some poetry from Lawrence Tyler. And I hope to get back soon to doing a more regular reading series, and also doing more announcements of events that are going on in Chicago. I hope everybody could hear me, and I'm going to check if I could hear me myself. Can I hear me myself? Can I hear me myself? Okay, I don't know if we have any sound at all. Wow, we have sound. I can hear me myself. We have sound, we have lights, we have camera, we have poetry, we got an ugly bird, and we're going to have poetry of Bob Trombello and poetry of Lawrence Tyler. I'm going to be doing a show for President's Day. I'm going to do my presidential assassin show like I did at the gallery all the time. Hooray! Okay. And then the day after President's Day, there's three holidays in a row. There's Valentine's Day, there's President's Day, and there is Fat Tuesday. And I remember many years ago I had a play on Fat Tuesday at Fitzgerald's, and we came in like fourth or fifth place. I don't know anything like that. It was called The Child of Greed, and there was some great talent that did the play with me. It was a shadow play, and I don't know. I learned a lot by doing it, and I wish I could do it again one of these days. But anyways, on Fat Tuesday, which is Tuesday, 14th, 15th, 16th, to February 16th, I'm going to be doing a I'm going to do a Fat Tuesday, Seven Deadly Sins show with Jeff Helgeson. He's going to be hosting. It's going to be kind of like our winter solstice program, if you saw that. We're going to line up people to read, and it's going to be a fun time. I just have to think of poets. I just have to think of poets who emulate each of the seven deadly sins, which might be difficult, might be easy. Oh, me! Okay. We'll put you on for one of the deadly sins. Will that make you happy? But that makes you happy. Okay. Now, I'm afraid to ask, what did you actually want to know?
Well, when Nietzsche talks about aesthetic Platonism, can you just explain that one thing that Nietzsche talked about to me?
Aesthetic Platonism. It's about Plato, okay? And you have to know about Plato. Oh, just tell me. Okay, fine. I'll just tell you. Um, Remember the allegory of the cave that Plato talked about?
Why don't you just answer the question?
Okay, I'll answer this simply. Okay. Um, Plato said that because because art imitates life. When we look at art, it's is only an imitation of life, and life is an imitation of the forms, and because of that, it's a useless description of what reality is really like, and it's dangerous to people because it's a delusion, and we shouldn't delude people. Do you understand?
You were talking about a cave.
Okay, okay. Let's get back to this. Okay, I'll try to explain this to you in ways that a bird could understand. Okay. Jeez. Okay. Okay. Plato, reality was like the prisoner in the cave.
Caves are scary.
Yes, they are. But let me explain this to you. Okay. There's a cave. Pretend that's a cave. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's a cave. And we're all prisoners in the cave. So we're sitting in this cave, okay? And we can only look in one direction in the cave. And behind us, there's a big fire. And there's a big fire. And we can't see what's behind us, not because the light's so bright, but we can't see what's behind us because I can't turn down the light, okay? Wow. There's a light behind us, and all we see are shadows on the wall in front of us. We can't turn around and see what reality is really like.
That sounds silly.
Well, that was Plato's idea. So we only see shadows of what really is. And people bring stuff by, the world goes by behind us. And the light casts a shadow onto the back of the cave. And that's all we see of real reality. Do you understand me?
Well, kind of, sort of.
Okay. So we don't really see what reality is. We only see the shadows of reality. And Plato thought that there was a universe that had the perfect form of everything. If we see a shadow of the duck on the wall, what we're actually seeing is
the shadow of the duck.
But we think it's a real duck, even though we're just seeing the shadow. And we could talk to the prisoners around us, and we could say, that's a duck. But it's not really a duck, it's just a shadow of a duck. You got it, bird?
Well, kind of.
Okay, so because of that, we don't see real reality. And because we don't see real reality, whenever anybody makes art, we it's an imitation of the imitation that we see on the wall. Because we can't see the real reality, we are doing a imitation of an imitation. Do you understand that?
Well, I guess I do.
Okay, fine. So Plato said, this is Puddin'head Press Live, by the way. We talk about art and we read poetry and talk about poetry. I have no guest tonight except the bird, and he's asked a weird question. Okay, so because Plato believed that we can't see reality, art, because it imitates life, is a delusion. So all art created by man, because man can't see true reality, is a delusion. And not only that, but in Plato's Republic, Plato said that art stirs the emotions in people. That's one of the things that art does. The delusion of art stirs emotions in people, and according to Plato, giving emotions to the masses and not controlling their emotions is bad for society. He talked about these philosopher kings. Yeah, I heard about that. Okay, these philosopher kings, they need to control society, and in a controlled society, we have to control people's emotions, so we have to control art. So in like a socialist managed society, okay, we have to control the expression of art. Therefore, in order to have a society like that we manage people and we manage the economy and we manage what people do with their jobs and what people believe, basically, we have to control art and we have to censor art. So the more a government, the more a country turns authoritarian, the more censorship there is. And Plato especially didn't like poetry.
I don't like poetry either.
Well, you don't like anything.
I never will.
Okay, so Plato said because we can't see what's really going on in the world, therefore we can't see, we can't have delusional arts, and all art is delusional according to Plato because artists don't see reality. Okay? And because artists don't see reality, and artists could make us stir up emotions, Plato said that we have to go and censor all the art. And he thought that art that had weird ideas in it was the worst. So does that explain it to you?
I don't know. I got a brain the size of a walnut.
Yeah, I know that. But if you study your Schopenhauer, okay, I know is very pessimistic. He says that. Schopenhauer says that I'm not going to tell you how to live life because it's not worth living. Basically, that's what he said. I'm not going to tell you how to live life, but I'm going to tell you how bad life is. And he was a German, so he had to tell it how it is. And he also was the first philosopher that was really bringing in some of Darwin's stuff in there. So he wanted people to eat one another and stuff like that. So keep on reading your Schopenhauer, and as you progress in your reading of your Schopenhauer, I'll explain more Nietzsche to you, okay?
Okay.
Okay, fine. Now that I got that over. Now that we got that over, like I said, this is Puddin'head Press Live, and we had to get that out of his system, okay? Last week I was here and I read some poetry by my friend Bob Trombello, and Bob died a year and 8 days ago in a car accident in Florida. And when I read his work last week, I only intended to read just a couple poems, but I kept on reading and reading and reading. And you know, it made a difference to me. It brought a lot of memories of Bob back, and it brought a little bit of Bob back to me. And I'm here, I want to give a toast with some yellowtail wine to Bob Trombello. Anybody else has some wine? If they want to toast me with Bob Trombello. And I blab a lot too much in this stuff, so a lot of people say just get into the poetry. And I'm gonna read maybe the first poem I heard Bob read at the Cafe Aloha, and I've been trying to get good lighting to be able to read here, and I really have a problem getting it. So because of my camera and equipment, basically, but I wanted to reread one of Bob's poems. It's his first poem that I think I heard him read, and he read at Cafe Aloha, and I think it's one of his best works, and it's called Renew. And then I'm going to read some poetry by Lawrence Tyler, if any of you remember Lawrence Tyler. It's called Renewal Uncertain, and it's one of Bob's best pieces. I went to renew my driver's license the other day. Good old Secretary of State. You could smell the old people that work there and observe your life moving in time with theirs. Almost hear the ticks of the clock on the wall as a passing of time becomes just so many people staring at one another. I brought my old expired license with me and countless pieces of mail, even my original Social Security card, ready to do battle with state-empowered bitter oldsters equipped with my best attitude. As I moved through the line, I started to pick out certain women, the cheap girl in the felt dress and the loose blouse, and some especially odd-looking characters, the gangly Canuck with his fat daughter. I made gauge mental notes of hidden sexuality, the blonde in disarray with the tight jeans, marked down particulars on sinister-looking types. Okay, I have to turn something. I'm having an equipment problem here, so hold on for a second. Marked down particulars on sinister-looking types. The greasy, long-haired Hispanic in the leather jacket started summarizing the lives of other people around me. I was working my way to the perimeter of the cattle fence, and I noticed a little old man. His shoulders were hunched downward into his shrunken body, and he shuffled kind of lifelessly as he made his way towards the old woman. He looked at the floor, and she looked at him, and he said in a weak voice, "I didn't make it." I couldn't make out what she said, but she fussed with his shirt collar, while he flapped his arms feebly and said in a small voice, "What are we going to do now?" The pair shuffled over to a seated area and sat with their backs to my view, both of their heads bowed down. "I didn't make it," rang through my head. "I didn't make it," burned at my fingertips. Um, "I didn't make it" echoed over and over again deep into my psyche. We judge one another all through life. Others judge us all our lives. And we end up sitting like so many crows on a fence, waiting for life's curtain to fall. And where do we go when the show's over? What happens when the music stops playing? Who plays with us when the toys are put away? Who's going to care? Suddenly I noticed the line had moved about 10 feet past me, and everyone was looking at me, doing my best to look nonchalant. I shuffled forward, mooing softly to myself. I looked back over to where the oldsters were, or rather had been. They were now just a memory, one of life's mirages, just a trick of the light perhaps. But something was left behind. Maybe just a thought, or soon to be a memory, but nevertheless, the judges are someday judged. My attention once more attracted. The cheap girl with the loose blouse stepped away from the counter. The Canuck with the fat daughter was next. I had lost track of the Hispanic. Damn, it was getting late. So Bob died a year and 8 days ago, and um, his sister and I went down to Florida to clean up his stuff that he left behind, all his computer equipment and all of that kind of stuff. And we spent a long time. I'm looking for one thing here. Um, Nope, and I'm not going to find it. So I can't add that little thing to the show. And she found this poem that Bob had written. It was called Stuff. And she found it while we were going through his stuff. Um, it's called Stuff by Robert Trombello, Bob Trombello. In a studio apartment clustered with endless boxes of books, stuff labeled Stuff, furniture antiquity piled high, last partial placed in an endless jigsaw puzzle shuffled in orchestral madness. It was exclaimed by a said fellow helper and mover, "You need to throw away some of this junk. What in the world do you need all this clutter for?" Well, let's postulate for a minute. I asked the unstrung guitars missing the occasional wire nut or bridge, or perhaps just a string or two. I asked the tube cases of posters collected across the great continental divide I call my life. I asked the clockwork beasts, paintings, pictures, vases and jars, sculptures, figurines, and odd haberdashery, games, maps, and, looking around the now quiet room, 5,000 books remained silent in their boxes. Would you cut off your arm because it was taking up too much space, making you uncomfortable when you slept? Would you forgo life's mysteries to abide by the laws of conformity? These things people call stuff are the things my life is about. Things my life is about. My emotions and experience are flagged along the way by the accumulation of the useful artifacts. When happiness is gone, I have something that remains. And I got to wondering about the people in the world and their tidy white drywall roomed homes with don't step on carpets, adorned with uncomfortable furniture, rhymed with color perfect schemes and anesthetized meaningless innuendos. I'll bask in the glory of my mess. I'll have proof to the fact that I have lived. And when I'm gone, Someone can figure out my mysteries. That was from 3/9/99. Um, I knew Bob. A lot of us knew Bob, and there's still a lot of mysteries about Bob, and there's still some mysterious possessions that I wonder um, what happened to Bob. Some of the stories that he wrote, and posters, and pictures, and stuff like that, and there was a whole life. Bob lived many lives at the same time, and there was a whole bunch of stuff that we'll never know about Bob now. This is called Dust by Bob Trombello from 8/3/2003. Dust collects on everything, like expended molecular thoughts. Dust repossesses the territories you'd think you've rented or bought. Duct tape the door frames and window jams. Seal up the room airtight. You still have dust. The musty breath of eons settling all about me in a continuous losing battle of never knowing where the silent invader comes in. I give in. Write my name in it to let it know it's there. Acknowledge the enemy for who you'll have the last hurrah, except to unsettle the dust. Thanks, Bob, for your poetry. My friend Bob Trombello. Bob was born in Maywood. Bob and I had tons of adventures at sci-fi conventions and poetry readings, and he was a big player on the player denizen of the punk scene in Chicago. He was a bouncer at the Exit, roadie for Bowman and Barumba, and this is again another toast to Bob. And hopefully, I could open up another bottle if I really need to. Bob would be worth another bottle. This is by Bob Trombello. It's called Partially Parts, Maybe Something. I'm driving for dollars, and I think this was a poem that was inspired by Frank Bonomo, because Frank Bonomo had a poem that was similar. And I've looked at Bob's poetry, and I've noticed that he definitely does, do an imitation of poets that he knows. Um, this is called Partially Worn, Maybe Sometimes, and I want to make sure that we have our feed going on, because Facebook Live leaves much to be desired. I'm driving for dollars. I am, and I'm spying on the sights one might spy throughout the city during the big orange ball's prime time. I break for a man with a shopping cart on Halsted Street after just crossing Kinsey. Halsted Street. Attention, Kmart shoppers. There's a blue light special in aisle Halsted Street. Another. I spy near Erie. Some kind of resentient electrical energy pulses in my head about lawn darts taken off a shelf because some girl's dad didn't watch her dad get dead after having her skull pierced. Halsted Street. Another cart I spy crossing the bridge over the river. Why? How should I know? I'll let another 10 points escape. I'm just here to deliver auto parts and perhaps to figure out how to cause more accidents, which is a pet brainstorm of mine to bolster business for the auto part repair industry, gaining me a promotion. Whoa! Passing division. There's a platoon shopping cart people. Their commander waves to me. I get some weird feeling of a bearded conspiracy maybe I should know about. Mutilated cart division at work spying out the industry while I spy on them spying on me. I really like just looking at all the girls on my way, a smorgasbord of virtual unreality. Sometimes I yell things through the emptiness of the big stupid van's rear space. No one hears me. I don't think. Reminded one shouldn't think too much in Chicago without paying taxes. I get around Clybourne. There's another. Maybe it's a good day for taking your cart for a walk. Another. Near Armitage. I'm driving faster now. They all look the same. Maybe I'm hallucinating. Hundreds of shopping cart people pouring into a cart depot to rally together at some predestined time, assembling in force, shutting down all the traffic routes. I can't bear thinking about it. They are everywhere, pouring out of all the business entries now and pointing at me. Over my two-way radio, I hear Bearded laughing. I got absolutely no points so far, I'm told. Shopping cart people, 50. Me, 0. Women on the sidewalks are pulling hidden carts out of storefronts. Everyone has beards. I'm damn near surrounded. Screaming tires come to an abrupt stop. I run into an auto business, slamming the door. No one is there. On the wall has been written, Jesus Christ is alive and being held prisoner in a shopping cart factory. I just stare off into space, and maybe I still am. That's Bob Trombello from 11/24/98. More Bob Trombello poetry. This is Puddin'head Press Live. We do this every Monday, and thanks for tuning in. And we'll get this up on YouTube later, hopefully. And this is a poem. Bob would write lots of poetry. Maybe I do. Maybe everyone does. Write poetry out of real life characters that they know. And I have to go and analyze my poetry after I die and figure out what I'm writing about. Anyways, this is about J.J. Jameson. Words in J minor are how I learned to stop the preponderance of displaced anatomy. I have this friend of mine, cantankerous individual. That he is at times, however, always honorable. This friend of mine from some geographic place sounding like plane without propellers. And one day, I look over and notice the curmudgeon, whose full name has 3 letters from the alphabet, following the letter K. Lo and behold, to my surprise, he has no S! Exclamation mark. I ponder this for an eternal moment, taking in all the accounts of the lady rutabaga, imagining a fleshy pair of buttocks in an unmowed field of unhurt grass. Glancing one more at the back seat of his trousers, where his ass should be. And I realized that when he was a child, he was too busy to go snorkeling, and that his car has no handles because they wore off. And I hypothesized that this man who gave up his kibasa, like front room floor, whose home with no sauce has no saucepan, who once chained himself to a nuclear power plant, has no ass. Because in life you have to work. Nothing can be accomplished without work. Don't ask why. Just put one foot on front of the other, simply. In regards to the once removed derriere, he worked it off. Jankuya. That's from 12/16/98, and Bob misspelled Jankuya at the end. J.J. Jameson, when he would read a poem at the end, he would always say Jankuya, which is thank you in Polish. And Frank Bonomo had a poem about his car being like a taco. And J.J. wrote a poem about his car is like a kibasa or something. So that's where one of the lines in this poem comes from there. And there's also a line here that says, like, front room floor, whose home with no sauce has no saucepan. And J.J. had a dog named Saucepan who he left out in the yard, and somebody probably came and took Saucepan. And J.J. looked for many, many days and weeks to driving up and down alleys looking for Saucepan. Never did. There's also a line in here, who once chained himself to a nuclear power plant. And I don't think J.J. chained himself to a nuclear power plant because between 1960 and 1985 he was in jail. So I think that but J.J. had told us that. So Anyways, this is Puddin'head Press Live. Thanks for tuning in, and we're here almost every Monday when there's not too much stuff going on. I was just out in Iowa adventuring, and it was fun. I almost went ice fishing. This is called by Bob Trombello. It's called Acid Folk Music Warrior. And so it was in an overcrowded studio with musicians on Clara Street, south of Market in San Francisco. I came to terms with the hallucinogenic, frenetic means of lifestyle kept within a door labeled The Cave. Remembrance being a word for reflections, only bearing on time seared by hot white light into the folds of my cranial canals and danced upon my madness. 30 days strung together, strung out, woven, beaten, puked into a series of events I still judge inconclusive of continual LSD uses. LSD. Lucy in the skies. Juicy Lucy. She's a whore. Where are the diamonds? Local pub owners overwilling to run tabs and lend out of towners money, conversing and laughing with customers, swilling free anchor steam, watching one single woman carrion crawler service 6 deranged musicians in the back of a Persian gray school bus used to carry transients around the country. An electric Kool-Aid party in a veritable Hitchcockian house on the hill, where an impromptu baseball game played with a tennis racket takes place, whereon, on discovery, the owner hits a homer with a rubber rat through a china cabinet. I thought about the fairness of not ruling a ground rule triple on an unplayable Ronitz. LSD. Lysergic dye, something another, chemical warfare, possible cleaner, will not remove spots. A scary looking woman with big black hair and her 3 ragamuffin children climb out of a steel blue dented dumpster in the early morning, starting out their day, wondering if they had their mail delivery. Was this the breakfast of champions? I promptly named her Scary Mary, cat burgling an abandoned building, swinging down on spidery ropes to a concrete jungle. Tarzan, gone apeshit, passing through windows of junkie den and into the wilds of an unlicensed shooting gallery. Broken glass and facial sculptures greeting the unknown, meeting the unimaginable. Run, junkies, run. LSD, the only cure for the common cold. Lab rats having a good time, no longer a need for food. The most magnificent park in the middle of the night. So stop a wonderful chrome sculptured slide, breathing in cold, misty city air until falling asleep, awaken in the morning, lying in the water at a civic center sculpture, water running off former slide, removing the copper wire from my friend's front room lamp, reattaching the worn soles of my combat boots, waiting to Land's End, countless miles of broken cement squares, no bus money. The driver would speak Swahili anyways, while I would speak some unique language that would leap from my mouth like a pretty pink flamingo's. LSD. First, are you experienced? Have you ever been experienced? Well, I have. Riding Bart, B-A-R-T, a bearded man, looking like Chong him very self in a pink tutu with a parasol, living in a cave and grooving like a pig, being chased by saltwater forces of nature, serving cave evictions. Attending parties as the uninvited guest to steal their food, or inadvertently helping desperate young wild-eyed women to steal laundry off a clothesline, properly walking clad in black, invisibly, on a populated nude beach at noon. LSD. Blow, man, blow. LSD. Drive, man, drive. LSD. Beat Street. 30 days gone in 10 minutes. LSD. I'm assuming that's all a true story. I don't know. This is a poem that Bob Trombello liked a lot. David Rubin from Cafe Aloha had him read it on the Wizard, WZRD, on Northeastern a couple of times, I think, at his Cafe Aloha Circus that he used to run at the WZRD. And this is a poem called Leather. The quality of the leather lies in the skin of the beholder. Leather, black, smooth, silky, finished leather, makes my skin feel cool, like the hand of a lizard on a window pane, like the campfire dying out at its last embers in the desert night. I can pull any jacket in close to my face and smell the wafting breezes of stallions running free in the cold air. Leather, smooth to the touch and sensuous like a lady, pulled taut properly, as sultry as a bitch. I get high on leather. Clad me in boots of tall black skin, the one the one-eyed tall black skin, the one-eyed jack of spades. Dress me in pants of inky armor, melts into the asphalt of the night. Fit me in a jacket of polished paramour. I am the night, and constellations bow to me. Give me a woman to match like a bookend. Let me smell her gloved delicate hands, bosom hidden scale male breast, and twirl out into the light fantastic. Part of the piece of the puzzle adventure. Leather, smart like a whip. Leather. Walk smoking in the salt from my sweat blackness. Color of all colors. Owned by none. You don't own leather, it owns you. Poem by Bob Trombello, punk master. He introduced me to all kind of bizarre parts of life. It's called Crippled Sanity Under Rocks in Very Hard Places. Some small measure of disbelief crossed my twisted thoughts when I view society and try to figure out the whys of the ways. Watching now, I spy the fertility of the dervishes, whirling about in their endless, loveless patterns of madness, so embraced in life as to be in constant battle with oneself. One constant motion now sees confusion. Slowly, I have worn out that false ambition. Self-alienation of one tracks tread across the nation. So much self-importance in certain circles. Look at me, see me, notice me. A cry. Help me. Won't someone help me? Can't someone see I'm sensitive and confused? Brother, can you spare an original fucking thought? I've always wanted to see, to itch the unscratchable, to bask in the black rain of self-piteous thoughts, shouting out as an insult to the darkness for never casting light. I'm worn finally to a point of sensibility, looking for clues in the downtrodden streets and alleys, the toys all once neatly stacked once again in the attic. By not speaking, do I hear? By not straining to get a view, can I see? I sit to the side as so that no one trips over me. Only by staying very still can I pick out, can I gain subtle insight into who I want to trip into my life. I'm going to read a couple more Bob Trombello poems, and then we're going to read some Lawrence Tyler poems. This is, I'm Dave Gecic. This is Puddin'head Press Live, and I'm reading some poetry of Bob Trombello, and thanks for tuning in. And this is, I just have one more Bob poem. And if you tune in to last week's episode, you could get it on the Puddin'head YouTube channel. There's more Bob poetry that I read last weekend, last Monday. And we also had an interview with Janet Kuipers and Terry Jacobus. So if you wanna rewind to last week, you could go to our YouTube channel. This is about Bob's dad, and he always had a strange relationship with his strange and strained relationship with his dad. This is called 9999. My dad died 3 years ago from yesterday. He wrote 9/9/2002 on this poem. My dad died 3 years ago from yesterday. I would be all fucked up about it. but I was fucked up most of my life. Why add on 3 more years? My dad is dead. He always wanted a view from the top, high above the world. He now lives in a box, cardboard box, on my top shelf. Dad was the kind of guy who immensely disliked computers. Said they took away his job on him. Dad died on 9/9/99, the day all the computers were supposed to quit running. But Dad never ran. He walked. All 300 pounds of him. And I guess Dad quit walking. But really, Dad got lighter as he got older. Maybe he couldn't run near the end. Now he's only maybe 10 pounds. He couldn't outrun death or 9/9/99. I'll remember him for the electric shocks he gave the kids at my one and only birthday party when I was 8. At least he wasn't shocking only me. I remember him for shooting the next door neighbor boy with an air rifle after police had left. My dad told me he shot him because the kid was being sneaky. I remember him for making me rebuild the chimney bricks when I was little. And I'll always remember Mom screaming as I fell past the kitchen window on my way to the ground. But he wasn't really such a bad old dad. And if I think about it, I got to wonder what kind of dad he had. All things Dad showed me now work out in therapy. Can you excuse me a second? Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. I'm alive. Are you still alive?
Yeah, you're on my Facebook poetry show right now. Say hello to everybody.
Oh, I will leave. Have a good night. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Who's watching your Facebook poetry?
I got like 20 people watching right now, and
Okay. Okay.
and maybe somebody say hi to everybody. This is my friend Mike. Um, he's been in some poetry readings. This is Mike Brown who bought Kathleen Chandelmeyer's book. So Kathleen, if you're watching, this is somebody who bought your book. Anyways, I will talk to you in a couple days.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Nice to have friends that always call you on. He calls me every Monday during the same show all the time. And yes, he would hang out with me and Bob at the science fiction conventions. Um, Bob was Bob liked DuckCon and WindyCon and CapriCon, and he went to a whole bunch of different places. And I know you just said hi, Mike, but Mike's already gone. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. This is Puddin'head Press Live, and that was a bunch of poetry by Bob Trombello, who died in a car accident in Florida, and you know, making reading his poetry makes me I can't say miss him less. It makes me feel like there was more of a point to his life. And that's why one of the reasons I try to keep the poetry of the poets on the scene alive. So if you want to know more about Chicago poetry, go to www.puddin'headpress.com or puddin'headpress.net, or just put Puddin'head Press into your search engine. You'll find us all over the place. Anyways, I want to read some poetry by another poet, Lawrence Tyler. Puddin'head published a book called Prophecies by Lawrence Tyler, and Lawrence was a big sidekick of mine for a while, and we had all kind of different adventures with him, and he also did some rehab work with JJ. Knew Bob, knew Lee Kitsis, knew Frank Bonomo, and Lawrence at one time lost more poetry slams than any other poet in the world. He was later beaten by another poet and maybe some other poets since then. But Lawrence was there in the early days of slam poetry, and he was at the Green Mill trying to win the slam every year, and he lost more slams than any other poet. At one time, Mark Smith organized a um, Lawrence Tyler Dream Date Poetry Slam, including dinner at Oprah. And dinner at Oprah's, and at the winners of the slam. And what Lawrence did is Lawrence was a short guy, 5'1" or something, and Lawrence wind up sitting on this huge like lifeguard chair at Oprah's restaurant, about 20 feet off the ground, while the two women that won the um, Lawrence Tyler Dream Day Poetry Slam read poetry to him on top of this rickety uh, lifeguard chair that was up there in the air. I remember when we went there, and I met Oprah then when we were talking and scouting the places out. And this was a big thing. There was 50 people that signed up for this. Thax Douglas almost won, but the winner was a tie between Sin Salach, and Janine Dubio, the author of Eminem and Other Poems, or I think Eminem Love and Other Poems, something like that. And anyways, so they won the Lawrence Tyler Dream Date Slam, and Lawrence looked at it as a big performance piece. So it was a fun time half for all there. And Lawrence and I wrote some screenplays together that maybe somebody will even be interested in someday. So I miss the guy, and I don't know. I'm gonna read some poetry, inspired by Lawrence first of all, and then by Lawrence. And it's gonna interweave. I will interweave some stories about Lawrence and explain some stuff about Lawrence and the adventures that he had. But first of all, before I read a poem by by Lawrence Tyler, I want to read a poem by Lee Kitsis. And I hope Lee doesn't mind. I didn't ask his permission, but hey, Lee, can I read your poem? Object in the comments if you want to. Okay, no objection from Lee Kitsis. So, this is a poem by Lee Kitsis. He wrote it for Lawrence Tyler. It's called A Funeral for a Friend. His beer gut in the air, his eyes closed to God, mumbling, "Tell Dave it's over." Why they strung up Christmas lights and tried for babies, and seagulls crapped on docks, and the homeless yelled on Kingsbury. He mumbled, "Tell Dave it's over." And as they opened their presents and the seagulls flew off to sea, Kingsbury was quiet, while the poet was buried with his beer gut in the air and his eyes closed to God. Dave and I watched, and I didn't tell him it was over for us. And somewhere a kid got what he wanted for Christmas. Um, Lee had a lot of respect for Lawrence. He considered him I don't know, a poetry godfather or something. I don't know. And that was Lee Kitsis wrote that after Lawrence died. Bob Trombello was at Lawrence Tyler's funeral. And this is a poem that inspired a Bob Trombello poem. I'm going to read the Lawrence Tyler poem, and then I'll read the Bob Trombello poem. This is like the transition between the two poets. The Chicago poetry scene is a community. I hope it's still a community, and there's at least a lot of friendships going back and forth in it, and maybe all writers inspire other writers. And this is called Memories of Frank Bonomo by Lawrence Tyler. Dave is counting. Jesus, Frank, don't you know David's friend died a year and a half ago? And you, Frank, catch a bullet. Not just any bullet, a stray bullet. And now you're dead. Jesus, Frank, don't you know? David's counting. 2 of his best friends gone. And you. What about you, Frank? What am I going to do? Who's going to care? and worry. What's to become of us, Frank? You're gone. Dave is counting. And I just keep hearing your voice on the answering machine. I can't remember what you tried to tell me last Friday night. All I remember is your crazy laugh, your voice on the machine, knowing my friend won't be there to hold my hand, see me off when it's my turn. Jesus, Frank, I miss you. That was Lawrence Tyler from 3/31/98. Frank died on the corner of Wood and Chicago Streets. Frank's last name was Bonomo. Bonomo translates from the Italian as good man, or close enough to good man. And he was shot by a kid named Guerra, which means war. So they were two rival gangs walking around shooting at one another on bicycles. And the stray bullet overshot the one bike kids and hit Frank. And boom, Frank was dead within, 10 minutes maybe. To Frank Bonomo. And I miss you, Frank. And this is Bob Trombello wrote this to Frank. I read it last week. I'm going to read it again because it's my show, so I could do that. Anyways, this is written by Bob Trombello to Frank Bonomo. It's my show, don't you know that? Nope, it's my show. You don't have a show.
Why don't I have a show?
You would never really understand. This is Bob Trombello wrote this for Frank Bonomo. Frank, where the hell are you? You asked me to read. I'm standing up here by myself, and I'm looking for you. See, many times I heard you tell me, just do it. Well, tonight I'm ready, and I'm waiting for your call. You're going to laugh and give me that big quizzical smile, aren't you? It's okay, Yannick's going to say, it's just a moment at a time. So don't have to worry. It doesn't have to remain. Just do it, man. Just do it. Come on. Doesn't have to. Okay. I have another version of that where Bob typed it out, but I don't have it in front of me. Anyways, that was Bob Trombello reading a poem, who wrote a poem for Frank Bonomo. That was Dave Gecic reading a poem by Bob Trombello that was written for Frank Bonomo based on a poem by Lawrence Tyler. It's a poem by Lawrence Tyler. Should we resurrect dead poets? I say, let them rest. Let them be. Should we read dead poets when we can read from our own page? We should be dead poets. Soon. And who will read our lives? Let us live our time. Let us be. And then we should write. We should, as if dead, for the great poets are all dead. I only have this page. I don't have time for all the rest. And I'm going to go to the other side of the room for a second. We're at Puddin'head headquarters, by the way, and there's all kind of Puddin'head paraphernalia lying all over the place here. And who knows what we're going to find next. And if I get this picture off the thing, we're going to find that next. And in the other room, we have something frightening, which I'm bringing back into the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe this may have been a picture taken by Bob Trombello. I believe that Bob took this picture, but I am not sure. In this picture, is me in my long-haired hippie freak days. Here's Frank Bonomo. Here's Lawrence Tyler. And this is Larry Goldberg, one of the most fascinating men I ever met. Larry had the capacity to meet just about anybody he wanted to. He knew Hemingway, met Faulkner once, and people like that. And I believe Bob Trombello took this picture. It may have been J.J. Jameson who took this picture. Lawrence Tyler, Larry Goldberg, Dave Gecic, Frank Bonomo. And this is one of the most bizarre possessions in the Puddin'head Poetry Archives. And I know some of you are going to scream. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a mold of Lawrence Tyler's teeth that he had when he got his teeth replaced and he got false teeth. So it went through many adventures before somebody said, "Here, you keep this thing." So if you notice, Lawrence Tyler had a slight overbite that none of us knew about. But yes, this is Lawrence Tyler's teeth. Say hello to everybody, Lawrence. I'm not going to start that. That would be too creepy. No, we're not. Okay, no, we're not going to have Lawrence's teeth read his poetry. I'm not that weird. I'm not sure Lawrence would appreciate that. This is something that Lawrence wrote before he died. Again, to show you stuff about this community here. Lawrence wrote this for David, JJ, and Lee Kitsis. No one thing tells your body how you feel. A little soft shoe in the morning, and you're off to the races. Singing a tune doesn't matter if you're worth a lick. The jamokes are loose. A little soft shoe, a move or two your body knows. Is all perfection happy? Is a small cup as good as a jug? What's the trouble with nuns? Never. Drink from a jug. Line up all the jamokes, 2 by 2. I can't sing. My soft shoe only works in socks. The jamokes are loose, and I am running with the gods. That was Lawrence Tyler. This is Puddin'head Press Live, and we're having some remembrances of Bob Trombello and Lawrence Tyler tonight, and talking about a bunch of poetry stuff as we go through it. And I talked to the bird earlier. This is Puddin'head Press Live. I'm Dave Gecic. We do this just about every Monday. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And sorry I didn't get this around the internet as much as I normally do. And I'm hoping I get some better reception here because I can't tell who's watching or if anybody can hear me. So Lawrence had cancer. Lawrence went through some hard times. He got sick, wound up living with Carol Anderson, the poet Carol Anderson. She's the author of Ordinary. She was the treasurer of poets and patrons for a while. Carol's still around. She's in a nursing home down in Orland Park. Orland or Tinley Park. No, I think it's Orland Park. If you want to write to me on Facebook, I could send you Carol's address or an address where you could contact her. And Carol is a good friend of mine also, and a good poet. And the scene is poorer because her health is poorer, and she's confined and stuck in this nursing home. So I don't know if any poets could go visit her and see her through a glass wall or something like that, but Carol is still out there, and Lawrence, and she took Lawrence in, and then Lawrence wound up having cancer, and he lived at Carroll's um, almost until he died. So so he touched the lives of more people than just me. But Lawrence knew he was going to die, and Lawrence wrote this poem called Eulogy. Lawrence was always had like a like a strong belief in God. He had lost his faith when he was younger, and he got it back, and he had strong faith in God. He just wasn't sure exactly what God was. But he knew that God was out there waiting for him. And he wrote this called Eulogy. The truth has always been important to me. I don't know what I should tell you. I have had prayers answered, and you can read between the lines. When you don't believe in God, lost your faith, and a prayer is answered, you must consider your points of view, rethink old thoughts. I am very curious about life after death. I believe there is something, perhaps not exactly. Who knows? I will not put God into a box. When you know you are no longer going to live forever, psychologically speaking, emotions you know. I mean, there are people who, 2 seconds before death, they think they will beat it. So when you let go of that delusion, what next? If I let myself become distracted, the earth, the sun, it's all so beautiful. Tears. I try to discern what's on my friend's mind. It takes a lot of concentration, and I have a lot. I miss my friends already, and I feel sad for them. When I die, they will feel pain. My life is over and beginning. I know I am going to miss out, not be here for how things turn out, and no one believes that. Precisely, this is the matter. We can't believe we won't know how it all turns out. That was by Lawrence Tyler, and I want to try to find another poem by Lawrence Tyler. Mark Smith, in his book Crowd Pleaser, perhaps in his book, the one Mark Smith's book Cat in a Coffin, perhaps, which was Mark Smith's first book. It was a little chap book. Crowd Pleaser, which Jeff Helgeson co-published, and I later co-published the second edition of Crowd Pleaser with him through Puddin'head Press. You can find some information on the Puddin'head Press website about it, www.puddin'headpress.com. And you can find Lawrence Tyler's book, Prophecies, on the Puddin'head Press website, www.puddin'headpress.com or .net, go to either one. You can find the Puddin'head Press Facebook page and all kind of stuff like that, so you can find us. Mark Smith, so I diverge. Mark Smith has a poem called My Father's Coat, and it's a really good poem, and it shows off Mark Smith as a good poet rather than just a guy who runs a slam. And My Father's Coat is about how Mark Smith wears the anger from his father, and he's angry at his father, and he's wearing he's wearing his father's coat, and can't really help it. I wrote a poem called "I'm Wearing My Father's Watch." It goes, "I'm wearing my father's watch. It doesn't fit very well, and it's not quite my style, but my father's watch. It always runs a bit too fast for me. I can't seem to keep up, but it strings my arms down. It's heavy, and it leaves my arms down, and I can never take it off." Basically, the poem that Mark Smith inspired me to write that poem, and after I did that, Lawrence Tyler wrote this poem called My Mother's Hat, inspired by me and Mark Smith. And it's dated 6/18/94. It's called My Mother's Hat. I have to say, if you haven't noticed, I wear my mother's hat. I know it's not a great feather in my cap. It doesn't fit as well as would like. The bright red color clashes with my somber moods, but it's my mother's hat. She fought and clawed at Andy's. The ladies in the loop came every spring. Not designer nor Paris fashion, just a new hat. I wear my mother's hat. It doesn't fit as well as I would like, but someone's got to wear it. That was the poem "My Mother's Hat" by Lawrence Tyler, based on "My Father's Coat" by Mark Smith. So it's a strange world where we all inspire us to write more. This is a poem. We'll get to that one in a second. I'll put that on the side. This is a poem called "A Poem for Larry Goldberg." If you want to know who Larry Goldberg is, that's Larry Goldberg. Larry Goldberg was the guy who ran the University of Chicago bookstore during the 60s. During the 60s, maybe even a little bit earlier than that, it was downtown. And he was the one that got some difficult banned literature and fought to keep it in the University of Chicago bookstore, including Henry Miller. So the University of Chicago bookstore banned Henry Miller from their bookstore, and Larry fought like heck to get Henry Miller back into the bookstore. And he was a big figure on the Chicago literary scene. Him and Nelson Algren wrote a screenplay for The Man with the Golden Arm. They asked Nelson Algren to write a screenplay for The Man with the Golden Arm, and he wrote this screenplay, and Frank Sinatra didn't like it when they were doing the movie. And they rejected it, and Nelson Algren said he didn't care as long as they paid him. So Larry didn't get the credit for writing the screenplay for Man with the Golden Arm that they didn't use. But he had all kind of adventures with literary figures in Chicago. And someday I'll talk a little bit more about Larry Goldberg. And that was a picture of Larry Goldberg. And this is a poem that Lawrence Tyler wrote for Larry Goldberg. Larry Goldberg was the last Jew on Maxwell Street. The people had to stay living in the buildings, or they could just go and tear them down. So Larry and a couple other people were fighting no matter what they could just to keep those buildings and Maxwell Street occupied. And Lawrence wrote this. It's called "Poem for Larry Goldberg." I'm driving down Maxwell Street last night about 10:30 p.m. The hot dog stands, the tacos were jumping, drug deals going down, and I'll be damned if there wasn't a medium-sized black dog eating a can right in the middle of the street. Now I can pass up a bum, a beggar, or a thief, but a dog eating a can is too much, just too much for me. So I got out of my car, ran over as quick as I could, gave the dog $1, and told him to get off the goddamn streets. I can't stand seeing a dog eating a can, no matter how hungry, even on Maxwell Street. That was published in the Anti-Mensch from May 1996, which was a Puddin'head press publication that we did in 1996. Lee Kitsis was the editor, and we had all kind of really great poets in there. It was also published in Nicole Macaluso's Urbanations in 2004, Urbanations Volume 2. And Lawrence and JJ decided one day to track down, and I don't have that whole poem here. Lawrence and JJ decided one day to track down Joe Brutowski, which wasn't his real name, but they tracked down Joe Brutowski in the nursing home that he was at. And if I could find this poem in a little while, I will read it. Give me a second here. God, I'm the most organized host in the world. You know, um, okay. Um, so Milwaukee Joe, Lawrence called him Milwaukee Joe. Joe Brutowski. He went by many names. I don't even remember his name. It was some German name. And Joe decided that Brutowski was a really cool sounding name, so he named himself that. So, who knows? Um, but nobody knew where, most people did not know where Joe went he had a stroke. And he wound up at a nursing home. And I wound up that Fish from the gallery was keeping an eye on him and knew where he was. But JJ and Lawrence, when they were doing rehab work together, stopped at a whole bunch of nursing homes on the north side trying to track down Joe, asking for the guy that played chess all the time. And they finally found him. Joe had worked with JJ decent amounts, well, occasionally. And when I closed up the bookstore, Joe was one of the few people that came and helped me by using his massive muscles to help move books. Joe was Joe was a strange man who was mildly schizophrenic, at least. Um, anyways, Lawrence wrote this, and it's called Milwaukee Joe. Did you know Mickey and Minnie all knew King Kong, who was a second cousin of Bushman, and Donald Duck could sing? So I recently found out. For me, Milwaukee Joe, Crazy Joe, is a performance artist. And if you would follow his chess man mind, find logic, you could go with Alice and the puppets through to someplace very few knew, and all Milwaukee Joe's friends could not find him. Hidden away, rumors of death, hidden away in a nursing home. And geez, he came back. When J.C. said poetry, Milwaukee Joe remembered a smile and a cry. Mostly I remember grins. I was just along for the ride. And when J.J. slipped him a five, we'll be back. We'll be back. Jesus, what can you do? What can you do? It's only right. And all those street times. Milwaukee Joe everywhere, always pleased to be there. Hello, don't forget, Mickey and Minnie, and a logic so true, you always knew a hidden truth in Milwaukee Joe. And Joe was a really um, interesting character and nice guy too. Um, it's the earliest published poem I could find by Lawrence Tyler, and it was published in Hammers in 1990, and it was called Reflections from the Rainforest. Now, don't you see, there are 3 inches between me and a tall pygmy. However, we don't use the word for the people of the forest. The Baka don't like it. We have much in common. I live in a city of towers. The Baka live in a rainforest. Trees tower over them. Their skin is dark, mine light. But the Baka don't care about those things. Why should I? I used to be taller. Yeah, I know it's hard to believe. I've shrunk about 1.5 inches. For the Baka and me, our height does give us a point of view not all appreciates. You see, the Baka and I are brothers. And for all you tall people, be happy. The forest towers over all of us. The Baka know how to live in this forest, and I am no longer discontent. I know how to live my life. So let us sing with the Baka. It's true, we are short. We are brothers. We are one in the forest on this earth, and all our cities. By Lawrence Tyler, published in Hammers Magazine in 1990, the second edition. And hey Lou, hey Jim, hey Valia, hey April. I don't know if you're still with us. I don't know if you're with us also, Christine. I can't tell who's on the feed anymore. This is by Lawrence Tyler. It's called Vincent van Gogh Had Roller Skates. Excuse me. Lawrence, why are you screwing up this phone? It's by Lawrence Tyler. It's called If Vincent van Gogh Had Roller Skates, He'd Be in Heaven by Now. Fools! Fools! A man bought one of my paintings, a yellow one, a cool $30 million one. Who said the Japanese were smart? I wanted to paint, leave something behind, and now you write movies, make books, sing songs about me. Poor, poor Vincent. Fools, fools, don't you see? If I could have painted neon lights, streets filled with ominous delight, I spilled my brain on canvas. I lavish my guts for you to see. It's life, it's light, enthralls all. And here, in heaven, we just wonder, why? Saw a woman, all black and blue, oh so proud of her new tattoo, hiding her beauty behind the graft, skin deep, no matter, just a fad. I'm too old to get it, though suspicious, for once I had a ring, oh so pretty, designed myself, made to order. My ring possessed me, I couldn't bear it. I threw it away, garbage, garbage that's all, and when I did miss it, I knew I could always have another made, unlike the tattoo that never goes away, under your skin, demanding more, bigger, better, till you give in. Get another, braver, more real, possessed by beauty, grafted, all the dots inked in. That was also in Urbanations, Volume 2, 2004, published by Nicole Macaluso, Collins, and the New Venue Art Press, I believe, was the publisher. And this is called Lawrence had lost his faith in God, and he wanted to somehow prove that God existed. So Lawrence prayed, and Lawrence prayed hard, and God answered. Lawrence said, God, if you're there, you could answer this one prayer. If you answer this one prayer, you let me know you're here. And God answered that one prayer. Lawrence and I had a lot. Lawrence had a degree. Lawrence went to Loyola, actually, I believe. He studied philosophy. So Lawrence had a philosophy degree, and we used to argue Spinoza all the time. But we never talked about Nietzsche, because Nietzsche is German, and Germans are too depressing.
Tell me about it, that Schopenhauer guy is terrible.
Well, yeah, but you also need to read a little Kant, and because Kant really screwed stuff up, believe it or not.
I can't read him.
Yes, you can read Kant.
What did he screw stuff up?
We'll talk about that next week, and why Kant like screwed up the Aristotelian world. Okay, and we'll talk about that later. Anyways, it's the poem that Lawrence wrote. His imaginary friend is God. Did you ever have an imaginary friend? Oh, that's the name of the poem. That's the first line. Did you ever have an imaginary friend when you were 7 years old? I did. Did you ever outgrow him? I didn't. I stopped believing in imaginary people at 16, 17. The problem with those relationships, sometimes they continue, even when you don't believe in them anymore. Oh, I know you smile. It's quite one thing to have an imaginary relationship. It's another matter altogether to argue, complain, carry on with someone you don't believe in and never existed in the first place. I wouldn't have bothered you with old problems, neurotic fantasies, except she has come back. This time it's different. Um, I'm not 7 or 16. Reality is easy for me. Such a peculiar circumstance wouldn't be worth mentioning, but she wants more than the old ways. I mean, she doesn't just talk to me, she interferes, takes action, not against me. No, my friends are being affected by my wishes. I can't explain. How can I have an imaginary friend who takes real people seriously, not just me? I guess that's the end of the poem. Yep, that's the end of the poem. It's an imaginary friend.
Am I your friend?
We need to talk one time about whether you actually exist and whether what you actually are.
Well, if I think therefore I am.
Well, what if I think that you are? Huh?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, fine. Um, what if I think that you're not? I'm confused myself, so um, we don't know. One more poem by Lawrence Tyler. I'll bring Lawrence Tyler back one of these days. No, I'll bring his poetry back to you guys one of these days. Um, I got a whole bunch of Lawrence Tyler poetry sitting around, and I don't know what we're gonna do next week. I think I'm definitely going to bring out some Richard Kalish poetry. He had a great poem called Billy Munson's Dance that I wound up with a copy. You know, going through the back roads of Chicago poets, somebody actually had one, and it's Richard Kalish, and he's a great poet, and he was one of the founders of the Arlington Park Poetry Project. And I'm probably going to read Billy Munson's Dance next week, and God only knows what. But I've been doing a little bit more adventuring than is healthy for a modern day world. So hopefully I won't be adventuring next Monday. That's why I haven't scheduled anything yet. This was a poem that Lawrence wrote for the Poem for Osaka contest. Um, I can't remember who. It's the city of Chicago has sister cities, and they used to have contests for the poet for a poet to go to that city and write a poem for that city. So you write a poem for the Chicago sister city, and then judges in Chicago and there decide a poet from there who's going to come to Chicago and decide a poet from here that's going to go there. The Ed Pinkowski won the poet for Warsaw poem. I think Sin Salach won the poem for Prague poem. And Lawrence wrote this for the poem for Osaka poem, who's our sister city in Japan. It's called Gomen Ne. Um, and it goes, Adams Street had extraordinary trees, elm, catalpa. Summer dreamed, concrete lined the grass. If you tapped the stone on the sidewalk, a city squirrel would come, expecting a peanut, often disappointed. I think of those trees of childhood and what they mean. Much of my family are gone now, but in my imagination, the trees remain an eternal bouquet. There was a war, a full years before. Adams Street had half the trees gone. We had needed to build a bomb, so they began to cut down the trees. You never know how much it takes to make a war. Osaka, Osaka, where are your trees? In Chicago, you found a sister to share the burden of our dreams. Well, That's enough of you, Lawrence. We're going to put you back in the Lawrence Tyler drawer. Anyways, I miss you, Lawrence. I miss you, Bob. I miss you, Frank. JJ, you're still around, but I miss you too. I miss you, Richard Kalish. Larry Goldberg, you were a huge influence on my life. I miss you. Joffrey Stewart, I wish I need to talk about Joffrey Stewart one of these days. Joffrey and I were actually pretty good friends. We didn't agree on anything, but JJ and I never agreed on anything either. In fact, I don't agree with most people, and that's kind of interesting. I don't know. But anyways, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We do this almost every Monday at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live, and I post it later on Facebook. And the bird is here to stall for time until people tune in. So the sooner you tune in, the less bird brain stuff that'll be going on. Anyways, Christine Swanberg, the new poet laureate of Rockford. She began her reign as poet laureate on January 1st. So I need to get her back on the show one of these days. Billy Tuggle and I still need to talk a lot more about the slam. I want to talk to Janet Kuipers about the difference between our poetry and poetry here and Austin, Texas, where she is now. And there's a bunch of people that I'm planning on getting on the show. Anyways, we often do a Zoom feed where we have a video feed going on with our Facebook feed, so you could actually see other poets. Today I just had pictures of them. Except Bob, I couldn't find a good picture of Bob, but if you want to look up some stuff about Bob Trombello, you could actually, there's still actually a Facebook page for Bob Trombello, so you could look him up there. And anyways, I don't have Bob's teeth, but I have Lawrence Tyler's teeth, and yes, they're very creepy. So please, poets, don't give me your teeth, okay? Anyways, I guess the bird, you got anything to say?
Well, I just want to know when I become a super bird.
You don't become the super bird. That was a Superman.
No, I'm talking about Bird Nietzsche.
Okay.
And how come you don't tell me about Aristotle?
Because you don't have a brain big enough to reason. That's why.
Well, what am I supposed to know about?
Well, I'll try to Aristophanes. Wasn't he the one who wrote the birds?
I don't know. I got the brain the size of a peanut.
Well, you'd probably like him.
I don't like anybody. I want to hear Vito Carli poetry about birds.
I don't know if Vito Carli has any poetry about birds, but...
And that Christine Swanberg lady, she has lots of bird.
Yes, I know she has lots of bird stuff, and we'll get her on again one of these days. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and I'm saying good night, and I'm saying good night for the bird, and this show has been for the birds a little bit. But, bye everybody, and I'll see you next week, hopefully. And stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and visit www.puddin'headpress.com and visit Chicago Poetry Book Review and on Facebook, and visit His Chicago Poetry on Facebook, because we got lots of stuff on there too. And if you go to the Puddin'head Press website and you go to About Us, you could find out a whole bunch of stuff that we do. We don't have any live venues right now, and you could also check out the Facebook, the Puddin'head YouTube channel, and buy a book. You know, it's always cool when you buy a poet's book, especially Lawrence Tyler's family would really appreciate it. And they can find out a lot more about Lawrence through there. And Prophecies is a book that has three different poems in it. They're longer poems. The middle one is a science fiction poem. First one is a little bit science fiction-y. Up there, if you could see it, is a t-shirt with the logo from Prophecies on it. Right above John Dixon, next to the Dan Cleary painting, and the Victoria Martin painting is up there, and yes, I collect too much junk, and oh well, there's my one of my old teachers is on, and then thanks for teaching me. Thanks for not teaching me about German philosophers. Um, and I want to thank everybody else for not talking to me about German philosophers. And and have a nice night. And don't read Schopenhauer. Talk to you later. Bye.